and I finally felt grounded. Like I felt like pulled back to earth, and it was such an amazing feeling. I cried, guys. Like I legitimately cried after eating this omelet, and I think I'm gonna cry now about it because it was that powerful of an experience. It was just the final just like release of like, this is it. I'm finally going to recover. This has been a video that has been long in the making. I should have made this video about a year ago, but I just have been dragging my feet with this one, but it's finally getting to the point where I really I cannot make other videos before I address this, because this was such a huge part of my recovery and it's changed so many things in my life. It will help you understand the sort of viewpoint that I take on a lot of my other videos. So the time is now to address this. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it and get it over with. I am no longer vegan. I was vegan for 5 years and heavily identified with that way of eating and being. And about a year ago, exactly, a little less, I left veganism. And I'm going to share with you guys my thoughts on this and my experience. Now, this is, like I said, it's such a huge topic. There's no way I can get it all into one video, so I will be doing 2 parts in this video, and then I will be making more consecutive videos after this. But I'm going to do part 1 right now, why I became vegan and why I left. And then part 2 is going to be my experience with having incorporated animal products into my diet for the last year. And I actually am glad that I have waited a year to create this video, because I think there's a lot of things that I can say now about this, and I have a year under my belt with eating this way, and so I can really share with you how it's affected my health, and not just like I decided to quit veganism and like this is day 1 of eating meat. It's been a year now, and I can confidently say that it has been one of the best decisions in my life to quit veganism. Now, before we go any further, I need to introduce myself to those of you guys who don't know who I am and what my channel is about. My channel is all about eating disorder recovery. So with that said, I am someone who dealt, and I'm going to go into this, but I'm someone who dealt with many years of an eating disorder. So I definitely understand that me having an eating disorder and restricting my intake played a huge part in the vegan diet not working for me. So I completely understand how that radically changes someone's experience with being vegan, whether you have an eating disorder or not. I am talking to those people right now who are struggling with an eating disorder, who are going through recovery. These are the people that I am sharing my experience to. So let's just dive into this video before I ramble too much longer. Why did I go vegan? So I developed anorexia when I was 14 years old, and I became vegan when I was 15. So a year into my eating disorder, my older brother actually, he was dealing with a lot of health things, Crohn's disease, some autoimmune type of things. We don't really know exactly what was happening. He may have had some parasites, but he was feeling pretty sick. And so my brother went on this like journey to find like health and well-being, and he landed on the vegan diet. Specifically, it was pH Miracle. So I watched my brother starting to really learn about nutrition and diets and really venture in on this sort of cleansing vegan diet that he was doing. And I really grabbed onto that, not only because of my anorexia, which was a huge thing. I mean, gosh, I just really wanted to jump on the idea of like, I can cut out all of these food groups and say that I'm just like vegan and have that be a really nice sort of excuse for me restricting a lot of food. So definitely that played a huge role into it. But I do want to say that that was definitely not the primary reason why I turned vegan. I turned vegan because I have an autoimmune condition called vitiligo, which are these white spots that are all over my skin. I have them on my elbows, I have them on my feet, a little bit in some other places. When I was young though, I had vitiligo everywhere. So I had big spots all over my shins, back of my knees, my neck. Like vitiligo was such a huge part of my childhood, and it sort of really scared me and scarred me, and I felt really insecure about my vitiligo. And so hearing my brother research all these like natural modalities and natural ways to like heal the body was really intriguing to me, for the purposes of healing my vitiligo. So I would honestly say that that was the number one reason why I went vegan, was I wanted to heal my autoimmune disease. So I went vegan, and of course I lost a lot of weight, I became very ill, and I really fell into my eating disorder more and more. I also started developing like compulsive exercise, and I mean, that whole shebang, right? So it was about a year later that my mom sort of finally just put her foot down and was like, no, I'm sorry, you cannot be vegan. She took me to so many doctors, and the doctors really explained, like, you need to eat meat. This is not good for you, and you don't have any reserves in your body to save you from, you know, if you get even like a common cold, or if you get a flu, like that can just wipe you out, and that's going to be really dangerous. So I started then incorporating a more like Western-y price, very like ancestral food type of diet, and my orthorexia again was really strong, and I was super into eating very, very clean food. I'm going to sort of skip over this part, so just know I was vegan for that first year, but then pretty much was told I couldn't be, even though I really wanted to still be. But at that time I was so young, and my parents really did have a say in what I did, and they wanted to save me. So I'm actually really glad that they did sort of step in and be like, no, you can't be eating such a restrictive diet. So I left veganism then. We're going to fast forward to when I was in college. Now, I don't actually remember the exact thought processes and how or when I really decided, like, I'm vegan now. But I do know it was in my like second year of college. I made these really awesome friends, and they happened to all be vegan or vegetarian. And so of course again that like sparked my interest in this way of eating. So I turned vegan, and I really went gung-ho in it. I started reading all these books. I started listening to so many podcasts and YouTube videos, and following people on social media that were vegan, and it really just became my life. I joined the vegan and environmental club on campus for a couple years. I was really involved in that. We did this thing called Veggie Nights at my house every single Wednesday night, all throughout college. I hosted Veggie Night, which is everyone bring a vegetable, and I'm gonna just like make it into this big meal, and we're going to, you know, eat and have fun. So Veggie Nights became a huge thing. My activism became a huge thing, and I really started to identify with the vegan diet. Again, this is primarily from the orthorexic mind, but a lot of it too was the anorexic mind of I'm restricting a lot. I naturally am eating foods that are really low in calorie. I like the idea of being able to like eat a huge volume, but have very little calories in it. So the anorexic wanting to be skinny definitely played into this. But again, the number one thing was that orthorexia. I was so sure that this was the best way to eat. I was so fixated on this is going to cure me of every single disease that I've ever had or ever will have. I was so fearful at that time of getting cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and like literally everything. I was very much a hypochondriac, and the vegan diet made me feel very safe, and I'm doing everything I can to keep myself healthy and to prevent chronic disease in or later in my life. What is really interesting about that is that I was totally blind to the fact that I was absolutely destroying my health. And yes, I'm not just saying that lightly. I was absolutely destroying my health in so many different ways because of this way of eating. But again, I was so sort of indoctrinated by all of these people that I were listening to, all of these doctors, Dr. Campbell, Dr. Esselstyn, the Center for, what is it? Why am I blanking? The Hippocrates Center for Health, all these places. Like I was really just heavily indoctrinated by them of like, this is the best way to eat. But my health started failing, like I mentioned. I started having intense digestive problems, a lot of bloating, a lot of constipation, a lot of just like heaviness in my stomach, so just like not digesting my food. So I was always feeling very uncomfortable. My stomach was very sensitive. I couldn't wear any like pants or skirts that like cut me in the wrong place because it would just like, oh, it'd be so painful. So like I felt like, I don't know, I felt like my organs were just very sensitive. And I started having really sensitive teeth. Felt like my teeth were gonna fall out. They literally hurt so bad. I was losing a bunch of hair. I did not have a menstrual cycle, which of course that was due to my eating disorder, but you guys, the vegan diet was not helping me in any way, shape, or form to get my menstrual cycle back. And I'm like, what else was going on with me? Just, it was the brain fog, it was the insomnia, there was just so much going on with my health, and yet I was like, but this is the best way to eat. And so what was happening at this point was my health started just getting worse and worse. And so I thought that that meant, oh, I'm not doing a good enough vegan diet. And so I started getting into cleansing and raw veganism and fruitarianism. And yes, I understand that this is what like really destroyed my health, was doing these like radical things within the vegan diet. But I think this is a really common thing that I see with even just a lot of my clients, is that they're vegan, they start feeling bad, they're not thriving at all, and they think that it's because they need to continue to restrict more and more food, when in reality, if you're coming from an eating disorder, like reason why you're having all this like IBS like symptoms and all of this like hair fall and no menstrual cycle and stuff, is because you are in energy debt. And the way to cure that energy debt is to nutritionally rehabilitate your body and to eat a highly nutritious diet that can help your body restore balance. I've done lots of videos on this, or not lots, I've done one video on this, guys, about do I think you can be vegan and recover. So I definitely recommend watching that video as well, and I sort of dive into this a little bit more. But the point that I'm trying to make is that the reason why a lot of people coming from energy diet are feeling sick in a vegan diet is because they're not eating enough and they're not getting that nutrition they need. So let's bring this back to what I was saying here. I was feeling like I needed to go on all these crazy cleanses and everything because my liver was toxic and my kidneys were backed up and a whole sort of myriad of things. And so I started doing cleanses. 14-day juice fast. I did the Purium cleanse. I have talked a little bit about that, how I used to be a part of that MLM where I was selling these like 40-day cleanses, and I got really hooked on that, and that definitely spiraled me into a relapse, like really heavily, because I was eating probably 600 calories a day of just like chlorella and spirulina. So I started getting into that, and of course after that I just noticed that my health was really, really getting bad. So then I decided to go raw vegan in about, it was probably May. In May, I decided to go raw vegan, and again, I was just super hyped up on this idea of like, this is gonna be what cures me of everything. And I was so like strong in my beliefs of like, it is so wrong to ever eat like eggs, and how gross is that? And it is so bad to eat milk, and animal products are the devil. And like, I was so stuck in this way of mind, which is really weird because it is so against my French upbringing. They are really into animal products in the French cuisine, and I grew up with, you know, homemade. I grew up with chickens. We had goats, and my grandma in her backyard in France, she has like all these cows everywhere. They get fresh milk. Like, that's how I was raised, and yet here I am like being so adamant about like, but veganism is the best way to eat because all these foods are super bad for you, and completely disregarding the fact that my grandma is like 87 years old and literally like the healthiest 87-year-old I've ever seen, and she eats a diet that is like really heavy in animal products. Not like really heavy, but she eats a fair amount of animal products, lots of cheese, bacon, eggs and fish and meat and all of that. That's definitely a staple in her diet. And my grandma, she would always tell me like, this is not natural, this is not like good for you, and it's unbalanced. I'd be like, what do you know? And it's like, well, actually she knew a lot. She's like 87 years old and really healthy. So what do I know as like a 20-year-old at this time? Like, telling her that like what she's been doing all these years is what's been causing her ill health, when in reality she has like no ill health. But I'm sort of getting off topic here. Anyways, so I started listening to Fully Raw Christina. I started listening to oh gosh, what is his name? Dan the Man? Oh, I forget it. He's the guy that does like all the juicing things. I'll like put it here. But I started listening to him, started listening to Goji Man, started listening to Unnatural Vegan, started listening to, oh my gosh, it's been a year now. I'm forgetting all these people's names. I'll just like put a quick list here of all the people that I was listening to. These were people that I literally had on just like repeat day in, day out. Just really, again, so stuck in that orthorexic mind of like having to know that the diet that I was eating was perfect, and it was saving me from ill health, and this was what I was supposed to do. And of course that, you know, wasn't just for my consumption. I also sort of like barfed that out to all my friends and to everyone, and like I said, I was a huge activist. So I need to sort of wrap this up here. Basically, what happened is went raw vegan, was eating like so many bananas a day because of Freely, and I like don't know how I did this and how just how not clear in my mind I was at this time. But I thought that like, yeah, you should be eating like 15 bananas a day. Like that's all you need for breakfast. You don't need anything else. Absolutely bonkers. But then, okay, so that happened, started being raw vegan, and then all the sort of like ex-vegan sort of mayhem that happened on YouTube. This was that point in time last year when like Raw Alignment, Bony Rebecca, Ravana, and like all these girls started leaving veganism. And at the time, I was really furious with it. And so I was so frustrated with it that I started listening to all of them, because I was like, gosh, why are they, like, what's their excuses here? Why are they leaving veganism? And after listening to a couple, I really was like, oh shit, like this is all the stuff that I'm experiencing. A lot of the things that Bony Rebecca was experiencing with her digestive problems, too much fiber, Raw Alignment, Elise Parker, there were so many things that resonated with her story. So I just started really being like, oh shoot. That led me to really dive into ex-vegan stories, and I found a couple, and I'll link them all down below, but I found a couple people that are really sharing their ex-vegan experience. They have other people that they bring onto their channel sharing their vegan experience and why they went ex-vegan, and this just started really opening up my mind to like, shoot, I don't think that this is the best way to eat anymore. So I had this in my mind, and then I went on a family trip, and we were in Costa Rica, and I had a friend with me, and then I had my sister there, and my parents were there, and then my brother and his wife and kids lived there, so we were all together, and it was just really, really apparent to me how stuck in my eating disorder I still was, even though I was very much thinking that I was completely recovered and that I was out of my eating disorder. I yes, had healed my relationship a lot with food, minus this whole sort of like raw vegan stint. But when I was just eating like a regular vegan diet, I had healed a lot. I was okay with eating. I wasn't trying to like starve myself, but it was like trying to starve and restrict in a different way. I do have to sort of admit that. But anyway, so I went on this trip, and I just really apparent that I'm still in my eating disorder, and it really bothered me. I was like, why am I now 25 years old and still struggling with this. Like, get over it, Chloe. I was just like so furious. I also, like I said, I turned 25 during that time, and I sort of just woke up that morning and had a big slap in my face of like, I want to have a family. I want to get married. I want to have children. And at this point, that is absolutely just impossible because I have not had a period in 11 years, and because I am so finicky and weird with my food that like, how am I even supposed to have a relationship with someone else when it's like really hard for me to even like be on a 2-week vacation with my family because I'm so anxious about the food and trying to like control everything. So that was just really a slap in the face, and that's what got me to want to finally just let go of veganism. I knew it in my body, I knew it in my heart that I was not being well nourished on a vegan diet, and that I really just needed to change something. I do have to say that I left raw veganism, so I quickly understood that raw veganism was not the way, and I started eating just a like, again, just the abundant vegan diet that I was eating. Abundant, that's ironic. Abundant in fruit and vegetables and whole grains vegan diet that I was eating before. Lots of sweet potatoes, lots of quinoa, lots of things like that. And my body just, it was rejecting everything at that point, and I was just feeling worse and worse. I started binging like crazy at night. That was one thing that I was experiencing. I would like eat all day, and then all of a sudden, like at night, I was just this like ravenous wolf, and I would literally, no joke, down like 2 like big things of like chocolate bars, the whole like family size thing of popcorn. I was downing like the whole loaf of bread with like half the jar of almond butter. Like, this was a nightly occurrence, and it was bugging the crap out of me why I felt so in control with food, or so out of control with food. And it was weird because it didn't feel like an emotional thing. It wasn't like, oh, I'm sad, I'm lonely, I'm gonna eat all this stuff. It literally was like my body was like, oh my gosh, like, feed me, like, give me food. And the only food that I would give it was like chocolate and bread and popcorn and vegetables. And so it would make me just binge on all that stuff because my body was like, you got to get calories in. So I really knew that like, I'm over this. I'm absolutely over this. I would rather just like eat some eggs and like be done with this whole binging at night. So I don't know what like brought me to that point. I had, again, I'm gonna put all down below like all of the sort of videos and podcasts and everything I listened to really help me understand why the vegan diet was just not healthy for me. Chris Kresser was a huge proponent of my recovery out of veganism. He really talked about the nutritional flaws in veganism. I'm going to link that down below. David Vitalis really helped me with the sort of environmental and moral sort of, or ethical aspect of the veganism and leaving veganism. He really helped me see that regenerative farming is super important, and monocrops are doing a lot of harm to our environment. And hey guys, it's editing me, and I'm sorry, but I'm so ridiculous and I left out so many things. So I just wanted to pop in here real quick and just say that at this time, shortly after I left veganism, so like a week or so, I did go and I got sort of all my blood work done and everything, and I just want to share with you some of the things that I found. So one, I got my B12 levels checked, and despite the fact that I was supplementing religiously with B12, I was super low, like scary low at this time. And this was something I forgot to mention. I was experiencing tingly hands and tingly feet a lot, so that's a big sign of B12 deficiency. A lot of nerve damage that can happen. Some of that stuff can be irreversible, so that was actually really scary, and that was a huge thing. That was like, oh my gosh, I really need to be eating foods that are high in B12, aka red meat. I need to be eating a lot of that so that my body can restore normal levels of B12. So my B12 was super low. My vitamin D was really low, and that one was really weird to me because I was like, I'm outside in the sun literally 24/7. I'm always in the sun. I live in Southern California, so it's like, how am I vitamin D deficient? But this is really common among vegetarians and vegans, and the reason being is that you need cholesterol to help synthesize vitamin D. So I was eating a diet, a vegan diet that is completely void of cholesterol. And so I was not able to convert all of the vitamin D that I was getting from the sun to use in my body. Other things I was super low in was vitamin A. And the doctor was explaining to me that there is a difference between vitamin A in the form of retinol and vitamin A in the form of beta carotene. Beta carotene comes from plant sources, retinol comes from animal sources. We need the form of retinol. It's really important and it acts completely different than beta carotene in the body. And so I was experiencing a lot of dry eyes. I still have this like weird sty thing in this eye because my eyes got so dry that I got what they called sort of like surfer's eye. And it's way better, but it was really bothering me last year, and the doctor said it's because my vitamin A levels are so low that's creating these dry eyes. That was something that I actually even heard many times in a lot of these ex-vegan videos were people experiencing dry eyes, and I would have never ever correlated that to my diet, but I found out that that's actually not the case. Your eye health is very connected to your health, which I know that, but wasn't really thinking. Um, what else was going on here? Oh, okay. And so then the last thing, there was a lot of other things that I was like super low in, and you guys, I was eating so many superfoods, lots of goji berries, spirulina, chlorella, barley juice, wheat juice. I was doing a lot of this stuff, pea protein, and different protein powders and all of that. Anyways, one last thing here before I jump back into the video. I got a bone density scan, and that was something that was really scary. Even though I was someone who exercised religiously, which that was sort of the problem here, but I always thought, exercise builds strong bones. But what I didn't realize is that when you do not have the proper hormonal levels in your body, aka when you don't have enough estrogen, you will actually be worsening your bone health. You will be depleting your bones of all of the minerals, the calcium, everything that it needs to be strong. So I was very osteopenic. So not at osteoporosis yet, but definitely well on my way. So what's cool with this bone density scan is that I have been monitoring it, and I plan on continuing to monitor it. It's not something that you like do every week. Obviously your bones can't grow that fast, but I've gotten 2 other bone scans and it has showed a lot of improvement. So I'm really excited about that because I plan on being athletic for a long time. I don't want to have osteoporosis when I'm 30 years old. So again, these were all things that started improving after I started adding in the animal products. Such a simple shift that has made, honestly, dramatic changes to my health. So I believe that was all I wanted to say here. So now I'm gonna pop back into the video. Anyway, so I'm gonna link all that stuff down below. But a lot of this was in my brain, and I remember that one day I woke up and I was like, this is it. This is the day. I cannot take another day of eating vegetables. I absolutely hate them at this point. They seemed so just like repugnant to me. My body was rejecting it all. I would eat broccoli and literally want to like puke because it was so bad. So like I said, my family has lots of chicken. So I went into the chicken coop. I got 4 eggs and I made a 4-egg omelet. I have a picture of it. I will try and put that up here. I made a 4-egg omelet with toast, and I buttered that toast front and back, and I ate the eggs, and I'm not gonna lie, it was just like, oh my gosh, that was the first meal I didn't feel bloated in forever. And I just like, I felt, and I know everyone says this, and I used to be like, no, this is such a joke. Like, this does not happen. That's not even scientific. But I literally felt my brain just come back to life. I was struggling so badly with brain fog. It was really hard for me to finish sentences. I was so anxious and just flighty, just like everywhere all day. And I finally felt grounded. Like, I felt like pulled back to earth. And it was such an amazing feeling. I cried, guys. Like, I legitimately cried after eating this omelet, and I think I'm gonna cry now about it because it was that powerful of an experience. It was just the final just like release of like, this is it. I'm finally going to recover. And I thought that like I was only going to, you know, eat eggs and then maybe I'll incorporate some fish in a week or so. That night I was eating a steak, guys, because I literally was like, my body, it was sort of like the eggs gave me that sort of okay to like go ahead and eat it, and my body just like jumped on that and was like, oh my gosh, yes, is she eating animal products again? Like, woohoo! So I went to Whole Foods that night, called my sister while I'm like at Whole Foods looking at like a whole display of meat, and I'm like, oh gosh, I have not done this in a long time, and I was so anxious and so like, how do I do this? What do I cook? Like, and she's helping me on the phone. She's like, okay, you love lamb, start with lamb. We always made lamb. You know how to make lamb. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make like a lamb tagine. And I had the steak that night, and oh, it was so tasty. It was so good. And again, I felt so grounded. I felt my anxiety just completely go away. That's something that actually I had experienced like a week, maybe 2 weeks before leaving veganism. I had the biggest, hugest anxiety attack of my whole life. It was like a 3-day hair falling out, heart just absolutely like pumping, pumping, pumping. I felt so out of balance. I thoughts racing, like it was a real actual like real anxiety attack, not just I feel a little anxiety. It was literally I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was gonna die. All that anxiety sort of left once I started incorporating animal products, and I have not to that day felt anxiety like that, and really excited because that was absolutely awful experience. But anyways, I'm gonna end this here. That's how I started eating more animal products. That's my story of me leaving veganism. The next videos where I'm gonna really dive into, okay, what happened next? What did I start seeing as far as changes in my body, in my mind, in my energy levels, in my anxiety, and all of that. So stay tuned to the next video. I hope that by me sharing my experience, it can help those who have been really questioning their vegan diet and really thinking like, is this right for me? Is this holding me back in recovery? Are all these things that I'm experiencing, are these due to me being vegan? Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm not analyzing you. So I can't say for sure, but I for sure am going to share with you my story so that you can hear what I experienced, and then now the health that I've been receiving after leaving veganism, so that you can experiment for yourself and be okay with that. I think a lot of us just need that permission from someone else to be like, it's okay for you to leave the vegan diet. It's okay for you to start eating animal products. It's okay for you to listen to your body and what works best for you. So now I'm like, of course, I just made this like hour-long video, and I'm thinking like, wow, I should have attacked this in a million different ways. But I'm gonna leave this as it is. I'm gonna upload this, and I'm definitely going to be making a lot more videos regarding this topic and really sharing more of my thought processes while I was vegan and leaving it. So ask away in the comments down below. Remember to be friendly, remember to be nice. I am sharing my experience here, what has worked for me, and at this point, being a year out from, you know, leaving veganism, I'm not gonna let anyone tell me that what I'm doing is destroying my health, because that is absolutely, utterly ridiculous if someone says that, because my health has never, ever, ever been as good as it is now. Yes, I healed my eating disorder during this year, but me leaving veganism was part of me healing my eating disorder, and I want to make that clear, because it's like, well, it wasn't the vegan diet, it was your eating disorder. No, but the vegan diet was the thing that was like really propelling the eating disorder and not making it any easier or better to recover. So for me, for my health and my sanity, I had to let that go. And like I said before, it was the best thing that's ever happened to me. So I will see you guys in my next video. Make sure you check out all my other videos. Like I said, I did a video regarding like, do I think you can be recovered and vegan? And I share my thoughts on that. And yeah, I'm running out of juice here. I need to go eat lunch. But thank you for listening to this ramble, guys. I hope that that was helpful, and I'll see you in my next video.